Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
good. It's been quite a day so far, hasn't it, everybody?
It has been quite a day. I was running from an accident, so that was very interesting.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, got rear-ended, so that's why
Oh,
I am late. So I'm
oh
so
no.
sorry, but
Oh no, don't apologize for that.
it was a thing. So,
Oh,
but yeah,
cool.
we're all good now. So hi, Laura. It's so nice to finally meet you.
Hi, Laurel. I'm so sorry you were just in an accident. That sounds
I
so
know.
stressful.
I had to leave my friend to get here. So I mean, she's fine now, but yeah, I was there trying to problem solve while also trying to problem solve to get here. So
Oh
glad that
my
I could make it.
goodness.
But so happy to be here and so grateful that both of you, could collaborate with me on this.
Yeah, no, it's like a dream come true to like find
Oh,
somebody
good.
who's like so engaged in the subject and is like coming, bringing in all these sort of overlapping and divergent interests. So it's super exciting for me.
Good. I'm so glad. And just about logistics, I mean, I have the PowerPoint, so will I be able to share my screen? It looks like host disabled participants screen sharing, but maybe Sarah, if you could allow me
Oh,
to do that.
multiple participants, I think.
I think that should do it.
Okay,
Yeah, that does it.
Yeah.
nice.
So then I can share it.
I know just enough Zoom to
Now
cloak around.
it's a lingo here. Let me just. I'm just gonna text Emilio actually to see if he's coming.
Hope so.
I mean, he's coming, I hope.
I know, or else Laura and I are gonna have a great in-depth conversation. So, but yeah, how were both of your days before this?
Can't complain. Yeah.
Yeah, good. It's like a beautiful fall day in Columbus, Ohio, so I'm
Yeah.
happy.
Nice.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Yeah, and so,
So do you live in Bryn Mawr? I'm super curious because my paternal family is kind of from that part of the world.
I used to, or I guess I should say, my parents do. So I go back as frequently as I can in non-COVID times
Mm.
to do my research because I'm still dissertating. So I stay with them, but I lived in Philadelphia, so that's where I was based, and now I'm in Portland,
Okay.
Oregon. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
all over the
Okay.
place. Yeah,
Oh
and right
my
now I'm in New
goodness.
Haven to curate a few shows. So it's been a wild ride these past few months.
Wow, I'll say.
Yeah, yeah, but Bryn Mawr's a beautiful place, and the college is
Mm.
quirky. And I'm curious, what does your friend think of it?
Oh, no, my father grew up in Havertown, so
Oh, that
it's
was the connection.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So it's adjacent and yeah, so I'm having all these kind of sort of, I mean, not nothing to weave into an interesting story, but just like all these like sort of Philadelphia things come up this week where I'm like, what is the universe telling me I'm overdue for a visit to Philadelphia and these
You
different
might be
places?
because of this. So yeah, it's a great spot. But
For
yeah, I
sure.
just realized, Sarah, do you need anything from me in terms of the introduction? I mean, it sounds like we'll just start with your introductions, and then I'm going to do a little announcement just about the forthcoming publication for the exhibition, and then we'll dive in. But does that sound good? Or
Yeah, that's all good on my end. I've got everything all ready to go. I am pretty sure I have everyone is set to mute when they come in automatically.
Got it.
They cannot unmute themselves unless I say it.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure everyone's camera is off,
Okay.
except for us.
Okay.
But
And then they can, I guess, could we direct them to give questions in the chat along the way, and then we'll answer them at the end? Is that?
that makes the most sense to me. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
That sounds great. And we might even, because if they're muted, it might be easiest if I'll read out the questions and kind of moderate that way rather than unmuting them, because that can get a little bit complicated.
Right.
So yeah, that sounds good.
Good.
And Emilio said he's coming. So yeah, great.
I hope so.
I know. Yeah. I'm curious, Laura, are you still curating the shows that are accompanied with Hidden Mothers, your research?
No, it's sort of, the show had kind of a run, like it traveled, it went to 3 different venues, and I kind of planned it, so they would kind of go one after the other. And I have a crate. I mean, actually, most of the work I borrowed from a collector, but there were a handful of things that were mine. And I have like the crate of frames in my studio, and I'm like, maybe I should be trying to find more venues for it, because yeah, I mean, it's basically all ready to go. But no, I think the last I'm trying to remember. So it went to Blue Sky in Portland. That was the
Yes,
first.
which I saw, which is great.
Oh, you did? Oh,
No,
my
well, I saw
gosh.
that it went there. Sorry, I didn't say. I think it was before my
Oh,
time in Portland, but
yeah,
but
it was a while
admire
ago.
the work that Blue Sky does, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it was sort of an unusual thing for them. So that was great. Like I, made a compelling argument for them. And then it went to the Palmer Museum at Penn State.
Yes.
And then it went to the Allen Art Museum at Oberlin. So, and yeah, and that was really great, because I went to Oberlin, and in fact, like the Allen was like the first art museum I ever like set foot in. And so it was this kind of exciting, yeah, it was an exciting proposition for me.
Oh my gosh. That's, I mean, really exciting. And I can't wait to hear more about it in this talk. And I just heard from Emilio, oh my gosh, his car broke down as well. We're like the motley crew this morning, but he said he found a spot. He's probably going to, I assume, come in through his phone. So this might be interesting, but look at us. We're like, I don't even know what's going on. It must be the universe telling us something too. I don't know.
Well, Mercury is still in retrograde. Like it goes out on Monday or something. So it's like the one astrological thing I do kind of believe in.
I definitely do. And so does everyone in Portland too. But really quickly, I just thought of something. Sarah, would you actually be able to show the slideshow on your end to share your screen? I just put it in the chat because I need to access my questions. And if they're on the screen, everyone will see them. So
sure.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, let me just figure out.
I shared the doc. I should have thought of this before, but
that's why we log in early.
I know.
So would you just indicate when I need to change slides?
Yes, we can do that. And actually Laura and Emilio should do that when they need to. Yeah. So I'm just gonna make sure it's I also sent it to your email just in case it like I don't know, for some reason it would log you out, but you can see it.
Okay.
It should just be like Google Share PowerPoint.
Oh, the present button. Oh, there we go. Okay.
I know they're always weird when they're translated to that, but yeah.
That looks good. And then I'll do the introduction, and then I'll hit share on my end so you can see that come up.
Cool. Amazing. I'm so happy we're partnering with you. It's really exciting.
I know, this is so exciting. This is our first sort of real back to normal programming since everything started. So
oh wow, that's amazing. I mean,
you're from the Sigal, is that right?
Yes, it's Sigal. It's Sigal pronounced a little funny.
Okay.
Sort of like Sigal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Hi, are you okay? Your car broke down. Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, you got unmute.
Yeah, my car broke down, and I was supposed to go back, and then I was stuck in Beacon.
Oh my gosh.
And I found a place. So I'm in a coffee shop, but I fortunately was like, in case anything happens, I just have everything with me, and I'll bring my computer and I'll bring my hard drive, and I brought everything because I don't know why I had a feeling like
it's the universe telling you.
I wanted to be prevented, and I went to bed at 7 a.m. kind of writing stuff for this, and yeah, so it's been good. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Emilio. How are you?
How are you? And
I'm good.
I hope people will join us. I think I'm so excited.
Me too.
Because ever since I started this project, people kept mentioning it. So as we had an amazing conversation that I wish would have been like recorded or something. It was like, but um, yeah, and I kind of have a little bit of like a story of how the how do we want to start? That's my only question. Like,
So I
do
sent you both
we?
questions, so I have those prepped.
Okay.
They're in a shared doc. You should have gotten those, but I can share them again in the chat.
Yeah.
So I'll be going through those questions.
I've
So
got
we'll
mine.
just
Okay.
answer them like that, but obviously we don't need to get through every question within our hour's time allotment. But we should be mindful
Yeah.
of the time as we kind of pace through. So yeah, but obviously if there are deviations, we don't, this is definitely for both of you. So, if the conversation, but I will just be mindful since I'm moderating, if we need to move on, I will kind of direct us that way.
Okay.
Um,
Awesome.
yeah.
That's so good. I didn't know if there was like little descriptions. I prepare like a whole thing, but it's also I think it's gonna answer the questions because it's all sort of what I was just been thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Michiko's your
Oh, great.
so it's 3. And we're recording this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Will it be shared on the site
No,
for this?
no,
Okay.
we would talk if it were, we can do that, but we would discuss that first. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And maybe we'll wait a few minutes to give people a chance to log in. So we'll start Laura and Sarah around maybe 3:05, something like that.
Good to me.
Yeah.
Hi, Jason.
Oh,
I was just saying, looking forward to this.
Oh, great. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
It was like it's sort of like a magical day. Because I've been wanting to have this conversation with Laura for so long. But also I just spent like 30 minutes talking to Catching Zier, the durational performance artist that did the 1-year performances. And just he's like one of my heroes. So.
Wait, who is that, Emilio?
Catching Zier.
Wow.
He did the road piece, but he's having
Yes.
he's having a new he's gonna do a big commission at Dia with his older work with the 1-year performances. And I came to Dia for their kind of fall gala, and then when I was trying to get back I got stuck because my car broke down.
Hmm.
So I was like, oh my God. And it's an hour away. So it's just like, I think I should just find a place. So I'm in a coffee shop, which I love.
Yeah, it's sort of funny to think that being prepared now is about having a good Wi-Fi and your headphones and a
Yeah.
laptop.
And I was just like, in case anything happens, I'm just gonna have everything, and all I need is Wi-Fi. And a coffee shop. Hi, Ethan. Hi, Anastasia. That is like a total actor's headshot. Okay.
Oh, hi, Haida. Hi, Rosie.
I think also recording it. If you, I just want to be able to go back to this and process. Yeah.
All right, if everyone is good to go. Here we go. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and many thanks to the Lafayette College Art Galleries. My name is Sarah White. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator at the Sigal Museum in downtown Easton. We are partnering with the Lafayette College Art Galleries to join in conversation with artists Emilio Rojas and Larson, moderated by Laurel V. McLaughlin. So I will give a short introduction and then I will hand it over to our participants. This conversation brings together artists Emilio Rojas and Laura Larson for a conversation moderated by Laurel McLaughlin about the 19th century Victorian genre of hidden mother photography and how it figures into Emilio Rojas's new commissions in his Mothers series, working with Latinx immigrant mothers and their children from the Lehigh and Northampton communities. The works are on view in the Grossman Gallery of the Williams Visual Art Building in the exhibition Tracing a Wound Through My Body between September 2nd and November 13th, 2021. For more information regarding accompanying programming for the exhibition, please see the Lafayette College website and their events page, which I will drop into the chat link below. The next series of programs will take place October 20th through the 23rd, in which Emilio will be performing works in the Skillman Library of Lafayette College and giving an artist lecture. So please see the website for more information about those events. A little bit about our presenters today. Emilio Rojas is a multidisciplinary artist working primarily with the body in performance, using video, photography, installation, public interventions, and sculpture. He holds an MFA in performance from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and a BFA in film from the Emily Carr University in Vancouver, Canada. As a queer Latinx immigrant with Indigenous heritage, it is essential to his practice to engage in the post-colonial ethical imperative to uncover, investigate, and make visible and audible undervalued or disparaged sites of knowledge, narratives, and individuals. He utilizes his body in a political and critical way. Sorry about that. He utilizes his body in a political and critical way as an instrument to unearth removed traumas, embodied forms of decolonization, migration, and poetics of space. His research-based practice is heavily influenced by queer and feminist archives, border politics, botanical colonialism, and defaced monuments. Besides his artistic practice, he is also a translator, community activist, yoga teacher, and an anti-oppression facilitator with queer, migrant, and refugee youth. His work has been exhibited in exhibitions and festivals in the United States, Mexico, Canada, Japan, Austria, England, Greece, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Holland, Colombia, and Australia, as well as in institutions such as the Art Institute and the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, Ex Teresa Arte Actual Museum and Museo Tamayo in Mexico City, the Vancouver Art Gallery, the Surrey Art Gallery, the DePaul Art Museum, and the Botín Foundation. Rojas is a visiting artist scholar in residence in the Theater and Performance Department at Bard College in New York for the 2019 to 2022 academic years, and the inaugural resident of the Judy Pfaff Foundation, 2019-2020. Mining the intersection between politics and poetics, Laura Larson's works looks to photography's history as a documentary practice to tell personal and sociocultural narratives. She's exhibited her work extensively, including the Bronx Museum of the Arts, Centre Pompidou, Columbus Museum of Art, Metropolitan Museum of Art, Museum of Fine Arts Houston, and the Wexner Center for the Arts. Her image textbook, Hidden Mother, published by St. Lucie Books in 2017, presents a lyrical account of becoming a mother through adoption, mapped through 19th century hidden mother photographs. This book was shortlisted for the Aperture Paris Photo First Photo Book Prize. Larson also organized a companion exhibition, the first to be devoted to this vernacular practice to be presented in the US, which traveled from 2014 to 2016 to the Blue Skies Gallery, Palmer Museum of Art, Allen Memorial Art Museum, and the Kennedy Museum of Art. She is the recipient of grants from the Greater Columbus Arts Council, Ohio Arts Council, and the New York Foundation of the Arts, and of residency fellowships from the MacDowell Colony, Santa Fe Art Museum, and UCross Foundation. Her new book, City of Incurable Women, will be published by St. Lucie Books in 2021, and she is currently working on a collaborative book with writer Christine Hume called All the Women I Know. Laurel V. McLaughlin is a curator, writer, and art historian from Philadelphia, based in Portland, Oregon, on the unceded lands of the bands of the Chinook, Clackamas, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Molalla, Multnomah, Tualatin, Kalapuya, and the Wasco peoples. McLaughlin is currently a History of Art PhD candidate at Bryn Mawr, writing a dissertation concerning migratory aesthetics in performance art situated in the United States between the 1970s and 2018. She has presented her research in Hong Kong, Canada, and New York, among other locations, and published in Art Papers, Art Practical, Performa Magazine, Contact Quarterly, Performance Research, Partake, the Journal of Performance as Research, Platform, the Journal of Theater and Performing Arts, and Antenna, the Journal of Nature and Visual Culture, among other publications. Her research has been supported by the Luce ACLS Foundation, New York, and the Arte Fund, Bryn Mawr College. She has organized exhibitions at the Center for Contemporary Art and Culture of the Pacific Northwest College of Art in 2020, Paragon Arts Gallery in 2020, the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts in 2018, the University of Pennsylvania in collaboration with the Arthur Ross Gallery and the ICA, Philadelphia 2017, Vox Populi in 2018. She is currently organizing forthcoming exhibitions at ArtSpace, New Haven, and co-editing a volume on the work of Tanya L. Corey from Amherst College Press, forthcoming in 2020. So I will turn the presentation over to our guests. Let me share my screen in a moment. All right.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for those introductions. And thank you everyone for joining us. Yeah, we can go to this slide. That's great. Thank you.
And
So
can
I'm
we
Normal.
start recording? Can
We are
start
recording.
Okay.
Yep. And I just
Yeah.
want to introduce briefly this publication before we get started. Emilio Rojas is having an exhibition, as Sarah mentioned, at the Lafayette College Galleries, and it will be accompanied by this publication that features a range of genres of writing and also authors, from poets such as Pamela Sneed and Emilio Rojas to scholars such as Ethan Madarieta, who joins us on this call, and Valeria Luiselli, excuse me, and also Mechthild Wiedrich with Andre Pop and Rebecca Schneider as well, and an essay from me, and also a conversation with famed performance artist Ernesto Pujol. So we're very much excited about this publication. It's forthcoming towards the end of November of 2021. So we hope that you will see it. It will live as a digital file, open source to all to be used. So please feel free to get in touch if you're interested in using it in your classrooms or featuring it in some kind of way. And so please keep an eye out for that. We have another spread, if you go to the next slide, where you can see kind of an intro to the great design that we have by Liam Hodgson of Monument Lab. Sarah, if you want to go to the next slide. That's great. Yep, there's the inside, so you can get a sneak peek. It's a bilingual publication, so we're really honored to have translation by Juan Rojo. And so, and we'll go to the next one and get started. Yes. So I'm curious, Laura and Emilio, could you each describe your research into the genre of 19th century hidden mother photography? What is it to both of you, and how was it used and received in its own time?
You want to go first, Emilio?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I first found my first sort of hidden mother sort of in London, I think in a flea market, and there was something about this image that I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I came back and bought the tintype, and then since then I sort of started collecting them. A lot of my practice, I collect things without knowing what they're going to become, or why there's a connection to sort of what images haunt me, and I have this kind of resonance and sort of phantasmagoria, or like they kind of go into my dreams sometimes, and listening to that impulse of collecting and letting the material speak to you through time. And then eventually, the project actually, I collected them for like 5 years before anything sort of started happening. And first, I didn't know what it was, and what it meant for this. It reminded me sort of a ghost figure. This is not necessarily the one that I would show for the inspiration for the inspiration for the pieces, but I especially the ones that have the mothers holding the babies tight, and you can see sort of the embrace, and the hands that are reaching out are the ones that are more the first one that I saw. And then as I was working on this project, the first time I presented it, I had a studio visit, and someone mentioned Laura as someone that had been working with the hidden mother photography for a while. And then in a book fair, I actually met the publisher of this book, and he gave me a copy, and it was just like I found so many connections, and relations to kind of like our obsession with this sort of vernacular form of photography that somehow it's like, I think a lot about Walter Benjamin's idea of like the dialectical image that both talks about the past and the present and kind of illuminates the future. And I think for me, this kind of the hidden mother photography photographic practice does that. Yeah.
And what about for you, Laura? Yeah, thanks, Emilio.
Well, I was introduced to them by a friend who was a great vernacular collector, an artist named Bernie Yana Lewis, who passed last year. And he found them and kind of, he thought that they, that they would sort of resound with my sensibility. I had been, for a few years, been working on a project about 19th century spirit photography, and he sort of saw this connection with them. So he introduced them to me, and like Emilio, I had a sort of, and actually, yeah, you should, you can kind of just scroll through these. I just kind of threw all of these into the PowerPoint kind of just show and tell, but yeah, and I had this really sort of powerful, kind of a moment of recognition, a moment of disturbance. At the time, I was beginning the legal process to adopt a child from Ethiopia, and there was something about these photographs that, on some level, really just kind of echoed with what I was going through personally in this process. And yeah, so it was this kind of strange sort of convening of circumstances. And I didn't immediately have a sort of idea for them. So in terms of my research, because it's a vernacular practice, I was looking kind of high and low to find resources on it, and I couldn't find like any scholarship, and it wasn't like there was this kind of institutional archive anywhere. And I ended up contacting Dale Kaplan, who is she works at Swan's Auction and in the photography department, and through a sort of series of phone calls, I found my good fortune, and she's here on the call today, which is, another sort of stroke of good fortune, Lee Marks. And she and her partner, John, had this incredible collection of hidden mothers. And I think it was sort of in the space of a few weeks, I hopped in my car. I live in Ohio, she lives in Indiana. I can't remember if the first time I came, I brought my toddler daughter with me, and she ended up like it was her collection where I felt like I actually got an education in these. And so not only was she, and this is one of Lee and John. This is from Lee and John's collection, and so it was a kind of mix of curiosity and happenstance. And so a big part of the project for me was, I almost felt like I was building a kind of form to sort of share with the world, like just like on a level, like I don't consider myself a scholar or historian or a critic, but there was like a part of the work where I felt like I was kind of doing this work because it hadn't been done yet, so. But just to sort of go back, so again, like Lee was my interlocutor with this material. Her collection was kind of like where I was doing this work of a kind of deep looking, and so I ended up using this material to write my book, which and again, at the time, I didn't sort of identify as a writer. I had a writing practice, but it was very much situated in relationship to, like as a kind of reflective aspect of making photographs and making films and videos, etc. So, but this was sort of a point where my practice shifted and became focused on writing. Some of it was circumstantial. I was a single parent. I didn't really have room in my life to have a studio practice at the time. I was teaching full time, and writing sort of became, I think writing took a more central role in my practice, simply because I was trying to excavate sort of time and space in my life for making work. And that was kind of what worked at the time. Like I could quite literally sit in the hallway by my daughter's bedroom while she was sleep weaning and like type a little bit on my computer. I couldn't go to my studio, right? So I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself, but
great. That starts our next question describing these projects. You both did this research on a similar genre, but it led to two very different kinds of engagements with the work. So I'm curious, Emilio, let's start with yours. Where did this lead you in terms of the Hidden Mother series? And maybe Sarah, we could go to that slide further in the presentation really quickly. And Emilio, I think, needs to be unmuted as well.
Yeah, so I I grew up visiting the border. My grandfather from my mother's side was a surgeon who ran a hospital in Tijuana and operated Mexicans and Americans. And my mother would have been born in San Diego in 1947 after World War II. But since the ultrasound technology wasn't invented, they couldn't know the gender of the child. So my grandmother didn't want the children to be drafted to fight for the next American war, which she knew was going to happen. And in case they were born male, so she crossed the border to the other side, to Mexico, to have the children. And the irony is that all her three children were born female. So what first inspired this project was the opposite of this action, crossing the border to have your baby in the United States. It's an accusation that inspired the Mother series, because immigrant women have been sort of accused of coming to the United States to birth their children, and these children are derogatory termed anchor babies. So mothers, these pieces that you're seeing are a series of video portraits of immigrant women, both documented and undocumented, holding their first generation children while covered by a fabric resembling the U.S. flag, the star section of the U.S. flag. So under the protection of the 14th Amendment, these children are American. And I feel like in a country that sort of prides itself as a nation of immigrants, this pieces serve as a reminder of the conditions of invisibility of immigrant women. So it was collecting these pieces, and then I was invited to an exhibition on the Japanese incarceration camps by the Alphawood Foundation. And it was about immigration and sort of they invited different artists working with immigration and borders to respond to the exhibition. And this video, the first video, which is actually the photo that you have in right now, was the first video of the series. It's still from the video, but it was actually playing on the background of a different performance, and maybe I can, maybe if I can. So, and all my work, I have to say, is inspired by William Saldua. This is a photo with a sign It said Marimacha. And thinking about motherhood, Ansaldua, who was an openly lesbian Chicana feminist, did not have any children herself, but I think she mothered a whole generation of Chicano and Latinx thinkers and artists and poets and writers and teachers. So I just want to acknowledge that as a mother figure for me. And then I saw this piece by Hans Hacker for Stargazing that happened right after Abu Ghraib. And somehow this is the exhibition of the Alpha Root Foundation with the photos of Dorothea Lange in the background of the gallery. And there was this screen that you see in the corner. There was this massive, like, kind of billboard-sized screen, like that was playing video. So I wanted to utilize that in the performance. And for the performance, I made a piñata of the Statue of Liberty with my immigration, with my green card application paper, and fill it up with DNA tests that then, when it was broken, the audience would take the DNA tests, partly because I couldn't get paid for the performance because I wasn't allowed to work because I was in the process of applying for the green card. So I asked the foundation to, instead of giving me my fee, to buy all this DNA test. And the video was playing in the background. This is another performance that was kind of paired at the same time after the Alpha one. And you can see the video of the mothers on the back. This is like the whole installation in the gallery. And then it's a project that has sort of started as a side, sort of as a kind of image, because the piece was about the sort of Statue of Liberty as a symbol of immigration. And Emma Lasser's had written this poem for the fundraiser of the plinth. So the French people paid for the Statue of Liberty, and then the Americans had to pay for the plinth, for the base of it, which was extremely expensive to build the statue. So Emma Lasser's wrote this poem called The New Colossus, and she talks about the Statue of Liberty as the mother of exiles. And I wrote some poetry taking that poem and then thinking about motherhood and immigration, and then kind of bringing together this image of Hans Hacker, which covered his face in a self-portrait, and another image by Laura Aguilar, where she's covered with the Mexican flag and the US flag, and sort of combined all of this with my obsession with the hidden mothers to be like, what if I cover the whole mother in the whole thing? And also in an idea to protect their identities, because some of us immigrant women are undocumented or have been undocumented. So that's sort of, I kind of went, and these are some of the other pieces. So.
Sorry, I just realized I was muted. And you, Mark, could you tell us more about the publication as well?
Sure. So the book is about very specifically this interval in the adoption between when I got my daughter's referral, which is a photograph was sent with it, with some information about her, and when I first met her. And so sort of during this interval was, I was receiving photographs of her, and for me, this was where I felt like I was becoming a mother for the first time. And, so the hidden mothers themselves, and again, I was introduced to them before I, sort of met my daughter through a photograph. But the photographs for me really spoke to, and again, I think this was the sort of the work of me sort of unraveling my fascination with them, where the mothers were both like very, were holding them. There was this kind of physical proximity. They were literally holding them up and supporting them. And at the same time, they were completely you know, sort of marginalized in the photograph, right? And then, you know, sometimes the photographs were like quite macabre, sometimes, you know, they were kind of funny. And I, you know, and I think that was sort of part of their appeal for me, right? Like this kind of like both of these things in there. And I can never remember if I wrote this in the book or not, but it's like they're, you know, like they're mother jokes waiting to happen, right? But yeah, and so I use these photographs to really talk very specifically about, you know, feeling attached to her, feeling like I was your mother, and then the ways in which this was a totally like strange and speculative experience that was available to me through photography, right? Like it had something, you know, it had absolutely everything to do with the way photographs feel like profoundly like present, you know, and at the same time, like we were separate, we were on opposite ends of the world. My daughter was born in Ethiopia. She's Ethiopian American. So yeah, so I was sort of, you know, I described the book as, you know, it's a sort of, it's a reflection on this particular moment. It's a reflection on hidden mothers, their sort of strangeness, on my fascination with them, on the sort of politics and ethics of international adoption. It's very much about sort of thinking about these sort of multiple losses, which are sort of inscribed in not only in adoption, but how they're also inscribed in photographs as well, and also thinking, you know, very much less about you know, like what makes a mother or who is a mother, but like really thinking about like the labor of mothering. And that sort of allowed me to really think in this kind of very expansive way about not just my experience, but thinking about the ways in which my daughter was mothered prior to when I became her mother.
Yeah, and that leads beautifully right into my next question. I'm very curious about the various communities that both of you worked with in the process of this research. For you, Emilio, it was something that we had the chance to do together at Lafayette College. They commissioned a new part of this series. So I'm curious to hear more about that, and for you to tell our audiences about that experience working with folks from the Lehigh Valley and Northampton counties, since that brought on our partnership with the Sigal for this program, since their current exhibition is very much in dialogue with themes of immigration and collecting those personal stories and putting them on display so that the community can really get to know the different generations of immigrants who have been in this area. And then for you, Laura, I'm very curious about the, you know, the scholarly and also the adoption communities that you worked with. Hear more about that and how that shaped your experiences with these works, and also your relationship with your daughter. So yeah, maybe we'll just keep hopping back and forth. And Emilio, do you want to start us off with that?
Sure. Well, I also have to say it was my mother's birthday on Tuesday, and she turned 74, and she was a single mom in the 80s in Mexico, and had a baby quite late in her 30s, and I'm really the person that I am today because of my mom, and I think that's one of the reasons why. And she was gonna join us soon, but she said she didn't know what Zoom was, so I was hoping maybe we should figure it out. But I'm because of my relationship to my mother and her relationship to her mother, I feel like this matrilineal, those are my natural figures that I grew up with, that I am who I am because of this incredibly resilient and powerful woman. And I see this in all the immigrant women. Like I am basically living mother's dreams because she always wanted to study abroad and she was never able to do it. And one of her goals in her life is that her children would be able to do this, but she always gave up. So she always tells me that, like, she's really proud and working with these mothers and interviewing these mothers for the project. When I asked them what was the reason why they left their countries of origin, uh, every single one of them responded because they wanted a better future for their children and a future without violence and with opportunities and with hope of being whatever they wanted to be and supporting them in that. And a lot of them left careers in their countries. And they were accountants and lawyers and biologists, and they come to this country to, because of the accreditations of education, they're not allowed to work, and the language barrier, not knowing the language as well, or sometimes not at all. They're put into working in taking care of other people's children, or housekeeping, or working at restaurants. And even though they're making this huge sacrifice, every one of them was like doing it because of the love to the children. So having them foregrounded in these photos, I think also talks about that kind of motherly love that goes beyond like your own. I think the way my mom also sacrificed a lot of things in her life to give us the education, the opportunity that we have. So working with, I mean, and it changes because in Chicago, it was people that I was very close to and familiar with, and they took care of their children as well. And in this project, as it moves to different places, I connect with different communities. And the stories sort of repeat themselves in a way. And this is the first time that I did a proper interview with each one of the mothers, and to talk about issues of invisibility, and labor, and exploitation, and the sort of vulnerability of being undocumented while trying to mother, while trying to work, while also trying. So like a lot of them ask me like, what is the American dream for you? And I think about a baby and putting a baby to sleep. So I also, in the interviews, I asked them to sing a lullaby that they sent to their child, which I'm hoping that they're gonna make it into the videos. I'm kind of like unresolved about how to edit and how to share these experiences to get, because to properly give justice to the struggles and the labor and the love of this women to their children. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, let's first of all, for Emilio's mama, let's hear it for the single mamas, right?
Yeah.
Happy birthday to her. Yeah, the communities question is maybe a little more well, I don't want to say more complicated, but more diffuse, I guess, in some ways. I mean, I think, again, this is my first book, and it's in some ways, it's the first time that I feel like I've sort of become part of a community of people who, read photo books or collect photo books. And that's been a kind of process of discovery for me, just in terms of like, I feel like I wasn't even sort of plugged into the idea of like how like kind of broad and strange and radial that community is. So that's just been a kind of, that's maybe sort of separate. Adoption communities are sort of, a full disclosure, they're sort of, the politics with them are quite complicated. I've developed some really very, very strong relationships with other families who started or grew their families through adoption. But there are, I mean, there's so many sort of swirling ideas around it. And in some ways, it's very, you know, obviously it's quite different than it was 50 years ago, when sometimes people wouldn't even acknowledge that, you know, their families had sort of started in and through adoption. That's obviously a very different sort of proposition when your family's transracial. And so I can't say that I have, you know, that I participate in a lot of communities, because I think sometimes there's a real separation, like there's a separation between, you know, a kind of engagement with first families, with birth cultures, etc. I think one thing that has really been a kind of powerful experience for me, and one I didn't anticipate, is that you know, so I think about this as my story, and of course it's like intimately woven into my daughters, but I, you know, ethically, I felt that you know, she's going to write her own book someday. She's going to tell her story, and it's not, you know, I can't, I'm not going to do that. And so the thing that has been really, you know, sort of very gratifying is when I have sort of shared the book with people, or I've done readings, and I've encountered individuals who were adopted, people whose families where there were children who were adopted, that they're, you know, like you put something out in the world and it's, you know, adoption is complicated. It's like this incredible, beautiful thing, but it is predicated on a lot of loss. And so when I talk to people who, you know, who have some experience or proximity to this, it's been really great to hear like that there's something that resounds with them. And I think maybe that has a lot to do with a kind of being forthright about the loss, about being, you know, trying to be, not present this as some kind of redemptive story, but to present it as something that is sort of where that loss is on some level always unfolding and is always present. And, you know, it's something that I think all families, even atheist families, have to sort of like constantly wrestle with. So yeah, so I don't think I have as profound. You know, my art sort of connection to Ethiopia is, in many ways, it is mitigated, you know, through the experience of adoption. It's very difficult to sort of it's difficult to create and maintain connections, and by and large I take my daughter's direction with that, and that's something I have to kind of honor. I feel very differently, like if I were it would probably look really different. But you know, we have had contact with the women who took care of her when she was in transitional care. We have contact with the communities that we sort of met when we sort of first sort of began the adoption process. But it's the connections are they're not continuous. I'll put it that way. So I realize that I don't mean to be, you know, mysterious. It's just it's hard. It's very hard to sort of describe without disclosing things that don't belong to me. So
sure, yeah. And I really appreciate the way that both of you, through these works, which, you know, begin at the genre of the hidden mother portraiture, have drawn out these instances of maternal labor and presence and also absence, and then, you know, all kinds of acts of mothering, and when that is visible and invisible. And then the ways that those reflect back on communities. So I very much appreciate hearing about these interactions. And I'm also curious about, you know, your projects in many ways give these original photographs an extended life. To me, it really seemed like it was part of kind of a growing archive. For you, Emilio, you know, it's part of a series, so it very much is. And for you, Laura, you know, this publication and this exhibition lived on in many different iterations. So I'm curious if you both see that and what your plans are for, you know, the future of these archives, so to speak. Yeah.
Well, I can say the book, Emilio, did you want to go first? You're muted. Okay. Yeah. So my book, I would say about 20% of the images in the book are images from my very modest collection, and the others were from Lee and John's collection. So I know that there are parts of their collection, and Lee, you can you know, pipe in the chat if you'd like, but have been donated to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. This one's actually my image. I think I got this one after. No. What am I saying? This is the last image in the book. This is actually one of the only images where the child's standing. So it's very purposely, like, I was imagining, you know, this child, like, quite literally, like, beginning to walk away from a parent. So so how it lives on as an archive, you know, so it's been archived institutionally, or parts of Lee and John's collection. Yeah, for me, I'm not quite sure if I know how to. I think I just kind of I lost the thread a little bit, which might be an indication this is a good time for Emilio to chime in.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think there is, I mean, I realize that at the core of my practice that lies this, the art of collecting, or my ex-husband would say hoarding. And it's sometimes, like most of the times, I would say I start collecting something out of impulse. Like I said, there's sort of an enchantment or a ghosting or hunting that happens. And I've collected like thousands of dandelion seeds, like candies from the Flores Gonzalez Toast piece, like the whole piece, plus I like moved to my studio, colonial books, turf grass, like gold that I stole from Spanish churches, like queer archives, narratives, like it's, and I was a collector since I was a child, and I collected coins and bills and keychains and rocks and philately. And one of my mentors when I was in grad school, Lynn Hickson from the Rhode Island group, said that she, in a studio visit, she said, like, you know, Emilio, I was a cheerleader when I was in high school, and I always was ashamed of that. But the moment when I accepted that past and kind of leaned into it, I became a better choreographer and director. So she was like, what are the things that you like lean into as a child and you were kind of obsessed with, and lean into that childhood like passion that lies without conditions. And I thought about all the collections of things that I had since I was a little child. And there's this quote by Walter Benjamin that says, like, the deepest enchantment of the collector is to put things under a spell. It must be kept in mind that for the collector, the world is present and indeed order in each objects. We need only recall feelings a particular collector attaches not only to this object, but also to its entire past. And I think this images of the mothers really, it's not just the kind of tactility and the kind of vernacular moment in photography. And one of the questions in the chat was when this photography stopped, when it stopped in about the 1920s, and correct me, Laura, if I'm wrong, where the emotion and the photographic process sort of advanced so that the times were not as long and we could take a photo without having to hold the baby tight, which was, it was actually just like a kind of a solution. And the other thing that I thought was that these mothers, we don't really know who is behind the cloak, right? In some of them you can see them, but in the really hidden mother ones where you can't see, where this ghostly image haunts the portraiture, it's we don't know if it's the nanny, it could be also the father, the caretaker, the grandmother. Like there's this kind of absence that renders itself like complete mystery, and we can read so much into them. So as I continue to do this project, and also it changes a lot in meaning, because I started with the anchor baby idea, and then when the Muslim ban happened, I was just showing this piece at the same time, and people thought that the covering was like a burqa, and this was like Muslim mothers. And then when the family separations happened a little later, it was about people thought that the babies were being held captive by the state, represented by this cloaked figure with the stars. And when there was discussion about Trump banning the birthright and sort of like situations with immigration where it's not being born in, but having to have the blood of the descendants of people that are nationals, like in Germany, for example. It People thought that it was about the kind of future of these children, like whether they will be American or not. So as it continues, I think it's for me, it just keeps expanding and it keeps motivating me for the type of work in activism and immigration, immigration rights, and sort of also for me, it's about accessing some of the resources that institutions like Lafayette and the Sigal Museum and other, like BARD, when it was the last mission where Michiko Kaya, who I think is in the here, who had the vision to invite me to do this exhibition, and I'm so grateful for it. I keep just sort of diving deeper and understanding the kind of complexities of immigration, and also coming from a position of privilege, right? I'm a professor. I came here. I mean, there's been moments where I've had visas rejected, waiting and not being able to work, but it's in no way compared to some of these women who like cross the border themselves by foot and are undocumented, and there's sort of the constant fear that they have to live with, and using the resources of institutions to kind of, I really don't like when artists say that they're giving voice to anyone, because I think that's a total fallacy. You're amplifying, if anything, the voices that need to be heard and that should be at the forefront. So I hope that my hope for this work is that it haunts you, like it doesn't let you go, and you start thinking about the invisibility of so much of the labor that actually carries and holds this country. I mean, it's not just immigrant women, but immigrants in general. Like this country would fall apart without us, and sort of the valuing of this ghost that carries the real exploitation of capitalism and its aftermath in a way in the bodies of actual people. So this and also the hope of these children who are the future of this country, who are the bilingual, trilingual. A lot of these kids also learn their indigenous languages from their mothers. A lot of a lot of immigrants actually come to the U.S. A lot of Mexican immigrants and Central American immigrants come to the U.S. without speaking English or Spanish. They only speak their native tongue. So I do see it's kind of a dark hunting, but it's also a hopeful image of this is the future of this is the brown and mixed race future of the United States, whether white supremacists and the right wants it or not. Where you know the Latinidad and Latinx communities and immigrant communities and refugees communities really have shaped what this country is and should become. So yeah.
I'm so curious. I have one final question before we're coming to time. Unfortunately, these are such incredible stories and there's so much research embedded here that I wish we had, days to go through this, but I also want to leave time for our audiences to be able to ask questions, and feel free, everyone, to add it in the chat. But in planning for this program, I was thinking as I was reviewing this work again, and kind of actually remembering, Emilio, that you had mentioned that this was a kind of haunting. And I'm curious about the re-encountering of this work, or the 19th century photographs, in one another's work, if that activated something in each of you. And I'm curious about that. Who wants
yeah,
to
I mean, it was thrilling to see these videos and to think, I think there are ways, like a takeaway that people have from my book sometimes is a little bit like, it's really focused on my daughter and I, but like a huge part of it was, again, this sort of make visible all these other, or to make legible, maybe that's a better word here, the ways in which this labor of parenting, of mothering, like to really bring it to the fore, and and really also look at it again, like from a perspective of like, what sort of connections do I have, for example, with her first mother? How can I think about the women who worked at the transitional house, who were also mothers, right? And they made their living taking care of these other children, and these children who would be adopted, typically by, white Western families, right? And so like on some level, it was, so fascinating to me to see how Emilio kind of activated those things in those ideas in the video. And there's something too about watching the videos where, because it's so slow, because you are, you're really hanging on like the grain of the infant's movement, of the child's movement, and then like there's something really like incredibly devastating about this sort of this kind of stoicism of the mother figure then, and then how, yeah, like for me, like it just sort of opens up, like I feel this intense longing to know their stories, and which is why I'm really excited to see like what he does with the sound, like just like the idea of giving voice, right? And yeah, so I, like it's just been sort of really exciting for me. And I think I said this before, of thinking about the sort of the overlaps and the divergences and the sort of the bloom, like the bloom of thinking about how, you know, we're sort of like two really different projects from two really particular subjectivities could sort of land on this material. So yeah, so it's just, you know, I guess Emilio, I'm a new fan.
Well, I'm gonna share one thing.
Yeah, please.
And this, I mean, this really summarizes my sort of, and I'm gonna read. I mean, I was a huge fan of Laura's kind of research and bringing this into her experience of what does it mean to mother someone that is another, right? Like, and the adoption process, and but linking it to like a history of photography that erases so many people. I mean, photography is embedded in a history of colonialism and appropriation, and the it's rarely been for othered bodies, and like Coco Fusco, I think about the book of The Bodies That Are Not Ours, and I think that's the title. But I love the tactility in which Laura writes about photography in a very personal and kind of nurturing. I'm going to read just like a little section to if I may. It says, the gem plate, an inch tall, fit neatly into a locket. Carte de visite portraits were collected in albums that were shared at home and early formed the family album. The photograph was an object to be touched, cherished, and protected. A case tintype slips into a breast pocket. A locket opens and closes. This is the one I love. Even when separated from their family, from their frames and albums, these photographs possess weight and heft, linking the gaze with the tactile pleasure of holding an object in your hand. And there's a section, so each video, so people understand who haven't seen the videos, each video lasts about 20 minutes. And there's right in the middle at 10 minutes, there's a section for about 20 seconds or 30 seconds, which is sort of like a little, I didn't know how to, my collection of the hidden mothers, which is you can see in this photograph, I didn't know how to include it, but I didn't want to put the actual photographs in display with the videos. So there's this moment where I asked the mothers to hold the actual kind of archival documentation, and the kind of the past and the present come into kind of kiss in a way. And but also there's a moment in one of the videos where the baby who was like sitting right next to the mom reaches out to grab the photograph, and there's this, I mean, I almost cried because it was just this kind of past, present, and future kind of colliding in and I'm just gonna maybe close with I have this quote by Ansel. It says, my job as an artist is to bear witness to what haunts us, to step back and attempt to see the pattern in the events, personal and societal, and how we can repair el daño, the damage, by using the imagination and its visions. I believe in the transformative power and medicine of art. So.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for joining us for this conversation. It's such a pleasure to learn more about your amazing practices, and also to hear you, in dialogue and think about these works alongside one another is an incredible opportunity. So thank you. And I'd also like to thank Sarah White from the Sigal for all of your work to bring this to fruition, and also Michiko Okaya, who is here to join us for her vision in bringing Emilio to Lafayette College and for this commission. So it's been a pleasure, and I'd like to thank all of the audience members for joining us this afternoon. Please go see the exhibition at Lafayette College. It's open until November 13th. After that, it will be traveling to other sites in the United States. So that's very exciting. And the publication will be out in November. And I'm going to drop in the chat. I think we need to drop in the chat about the other programming. So if you'll just give me a minute to do that, Emilio and Laura can follow up with any final thoughts.
I wanted to thank Laura and Laura, and of course Michiko, Esther, the Sigal Museum, for hosting this, and Sarah, and also all of the writers for the catalog, but also most of all of the mothers that participated in this project so far, and the babies, like the first baby, which was 2 years old, like 5 years ago, is now like 8, and now sees back and like doesn't even recognize that it's her. Like, oh, a baby, like yeah, and thank you everyone for coming. And if you have any questions, maybe you can. And it's a total dream, Laura, to have this conversation with you. And
thank you.
Yeah, I love when I find, brains that sort of think in the same kind of tangential and like obsessive and passionate way, and sort of like that we share. Like when we were talking, like last time, I think we talked for like 2 hours or something, and it was just also very magical to share that moment with you.
Yeah.
So I hope we stay in touch.
Yes, I echo my thanks and gratitude to everyone who brought us together, and yeah, here's to future collaborations.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all, and have a good afternoon, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
How are you doing after your experience this morning?
I have to figure out what I'm gonna do, but I think it's a lease, so I can get Honda to pick it up and
Oh no.
go with it. But it wasn't gonna be enough time for that to happen, so I just focused on like being on at 3, and I just barely made it. So it was great. Yeah. But thank you so much for organizing this.
Yeah, absolutely. I plan to pop up during one of your other events, so hopefully I'll be able to actually meet you in person.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
But this was wonderful.
Next week on Thursday, I'm giving an artist lecture on pulp practice in Lafayette. So come by if you can. Straight up.
Will do. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. Are you there?
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
All right, so we're good on our end. Are there any plans to make the recording available? Oh wait, I think.
Yeah,
there we go.
Sorry, I was typing just because I didn't. There aren't plans right now. I can. I'd want to just see if the artists were open to that. If they are, great, we can. We have no qualms on our end about adding it to the website as kind of a living archive of what we did. And yeah, if that were of interest to you as well on the museum side, we could certainly do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I had someone messaging me saying they were having technical problems logging in.
I see. Yeah.
I sort of that happens with every program too. So.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Yeah, we could look into that. Let me circle back with them and ask them and see.
Okay.
And then also, I know I don't know if you've met Rico Reyes yet.
Not yet, no.
Director. He took over from Chico, and he I know is interested in community partnerships, and would very much like to stay in dialogue with the Sigal. So
super.
yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. But this is really exciting to be able to work together. I mean, I know we had to do it over Zoom, and that's, a wonderful tool. But in another time, I'm sure we would have loved to, like bring people to your space and our space and do that kind of tour.
I know how difficult it is to try to do like film screenings and especially art shows when you can't go and see the art.
So this was, kind of a godsend in that way, but I'm glad we could make it work. So thank you.
Yeah, oh no, thank you. And I know we do what we can, but I know everyone's tired of Zoom. Like I'm tired of Zoom.
That's why I was like, an hour is enough time. Of course, we could talk for days, but it's like, do people have the capacity? So,
Right.
But I think this was great. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I think we have all the paperwork set on my end, so just let us know if you need anything else.
Yeah, I think we're all set on my end too. I'll just follow up about the recording too also.
All right.
Yeah,
I have
great.
to go and close up our museum for the day.
Okay.
So, okay.
I'll see you.
All right, it was good to meet you.
I know, it was great to meet you too. So
All right. Be well.
Bye.
Take care.
yeah.